We're going to get started. I had asked the members of the board to come at 7 o'clock to sit in on a briefing. I've asked Jack Mabb in the health department, as well as David Harrison from our emergency management office, to sort of bring us up to date on where we are and what's been going on. So I'll ask Jack and Dave to come up, and Chuck Kaiser and anybody else that Jack would like to have up here.
This where you want us, Matt?
Yep, that's fine.
Good evening. Jack Mabb, Public Health Director. I'm going to give you some general information about our status right now. Then I'm going to kind of turn it over to two people who really know a lot more about what's going on than I do, kind of boots on the ground folks. Luann Klein, Public Health Director. She's going to tell you a little bit about the criteria for testing, the people who can be tested. It isn't true that just anybody who wants to test can get the test. I think a lot of people are finding that out. Chuck Kaiser is here. He's going to talk about what happens to folks if they turn up positive, and what our responsibility is for them as far as isolation and quarantine. And then we're going to open it up to questions, because I think that there's probably going to be a bunch. So let me start out by saying, as of today, we have no confirmed cases of coronavirus in the county. Now, that may come as a surprise to some of you, because you probably heard the rumor mill out there. It started for me Monday morning at 7 o'clock when the radio station emailed me, or actually texted me at home and said, I hear we have 3 confirmed cases in Hudson. No, 2 in Hudson, 1 in Chatham, 3 altogether in Columbia County. I did wait till I got back to work just to make sure that wasn't true, even though all weekend long we were involved in the coronavirus. But we have no positive cases in Columbia County. Now, Columbia Memorial Health has tested 10 people to date. So those are the 10 people that met the criteria. 2 of them are Greene County residents, the rest of them is ours. And 5 of that 8 that's left are tests that are pending now. So it's escalating. What's going on is escalating for us, because those 5 people kind of came online in the last couple of days. 4 out of the 5 that are pending are travel related. One of them is a medical professional who treated a fellow medical professional in a hospital setting, and not CMH, in a hospital setting. The gentleman he treated ended up being positive for the virus. When that happens, when we have a direct contact between individuals, somebody who has a direct contact, we quarantine them until or unless they develop symptoms. In this case, the gentleman spiked a fever today, so he's being tested today. The other travel-related folks are Cancun, Mexico, and so one of them was Panama. An 85-year-old lady who, God bless her, went on a cruise, came back with pneumonia. And I will tell you tonight that I suspect that the medical provider and the 37-year-old who went to Mexico could very well be our first 2 positive cases in Columbia County. So that's where it is. That's an accurate picture. That's an honest picture. We do not have any confirmed cases in Columbia County. So having said that, I'm going to turn this over to Luann, who's going to talk to you a little bit about what people can be tested and where it's likely to be on.
Well, when this first started, we all thought that this was going to be a nice, neat package. The plan was that when people came back from travel, from the 5 higher level risk group countries, which right now are Italy, South Korea, China, Iran, and Japan, that when they actually came back through immigrations, we were going to get a nice little phone call saying that they had re-entered the United States and that we needed to contact them. Unfortunately, that has not been the case. I would say everyone that we have had contact with that has had travel to these high-risk countries have called us themselves. So that's a little disappointing. We do really worry that there's a lot of other people out there who may be feeling well and just haven't developed symptoms. Most of the time, symptoms start within anywhere from day 2 to day 14 after you've had an exposure. On average, it's about day 5. And we're seeing the day 5 as a pretty accurate number. But we do really worry that there are people out there. We're not seeing the community spread yet, which is great, because once we do start, I do think that it's going to kind of blow up. You know, and our containment strategy is going to turn to just mitigation. So anyway, testing has changed, sometimes daily. This week we have had pretty consistent testing requirements. The whole thing is evolving. We're learning more about it from other countries as well as our own. Right now, people that are qualifying for testing are an individual who has come in within proximate contact. So that's somebody like at this meeting or in a classroom, a gathering, family gathering, church gathering, to a person who has become positive. Also, an individual who has traveled to one of those 5 countries that are the level 2 or 3 and shows symptoms of illness. An individual who's quarantined, either mandatory or precautionarily, and has shown symptoms of COVID-19. Or an individual who is symptomatic and has not tested positive for any other infection. And we do what is happening when somebody is of risk and they go to the ER. They are usually getting a respiratory viral panel, which is 15 of the most common respiratory illnesses. And once all of those come back negative, that's when they start looking at the possibility of COVID-19. Of course, the moment they walk in the door, they're putting a mask in it, into a negative pressure room and on isolation until they do determine whether they need to have that testing. So anyway, the final reason that you might be tested would be that your doctor, in consultation with us and the state, determines that it's necessary. We are looking for that community spread, so people aren't going to fit that perfect picture that we all thought, you know, we would be seeing initially. So one thing about every case that does require testing, it has to be in consultation with the local health department. And we usually do talk to the state health department pretty quickly to get their guidance, but we actually have to start a case for them. We have to go into the state infectious disease, communicable disease, and give every case a number so that they actually can have the testing. Yeah, so it would have been nice if it was that pretty picture, but unfortunately life is real and that's how it goes. We've had over 100 phone calls this week. Many are people with legitimate concerns. Some people are just very worried. A lot of senior citizens that are very, very worried, doing a lot of education, a lot of investigative work. You know, many of the cases require 4, 5, 6 telephone calls to investigate, and you know, just hours of trying to figure out what to do next. And like I said, a lot of the time it is in consultation with the state health department. They give us guidance, but then ultimately it's left up to the local health department to make the decision. And a lot of times we're making decisions that are common sense decisions. We don't want to have somebody who's positive in a school or a hospital or a nursing home. So we are worried about our seniors, and because they are the population at risk. I'll let Chuck continue. He can tell you a little bit about our isolation and quarantine requirements.
Good evening, everyone. I wanted to share with you why are we concerned about COVID-19? What makes it different from another virus? What makes it different from the flu? All those types of things. The reason we're concerned about COVID-19 is because it's a novel coronavirus, which means it's a brand new strain of a coronavirus. Coronaviruses are common to us. They're the virus that basically produces the common cold. It also has produced MERS and SARS. But basically, this is a brand new strain of this virus where it's unpredictable. We're not sure how it's going to act or how it's going to respond. So we're going by what we know of previous viruses and what we've learned so far to date as this thing has been evolving. So being a new virus, there's a couple things that we're concerned about. One of the things we do know is that it's a enveloped virus, which basically means that it has its innate ability to protect itself to some degree when it's outside of its host. So in other words, if somebody coughs or sneezes on a hard table or something to that effect, it has a long period of time where it can sustain itself without dying. That number has been changing frequently. Initially, it was thought that it might be up to 2 hours. Now there's thinking it might be up to a couple of days. So that could be one of the reasons why it's so frequently spread right now. The other thing is it's thought to be droplet borne, which means that if you sneeze or cough, you basically expel water, and in that water or in that mist is the virus, and it usually will travel about 6 feet. So that's why we're telling people when you social distance, you should be at least 6 feet from another individual, because that's the span in which this thing can be transmitted. So that's a concern, but also the concern is this may be airborne. And this is still unconclusive, but if it's airborne, it simply means that not only can it be transmitted via droplet, which means it'll drop out of the air fairly quickly because water is heavier. But if it's airborne, it means that it aerosolizes to a point where it can suspend in the air. And it can suspend in the air for a considerable period of time. Initial thoughts were it might be able to suspend in the air for up to 2 hours. So take an example, you go to Walmart or you go to the grocery mart or you go out, whatever it is, somebody shopped an hour before you, sneezed in the hallway while they were shopping, and now you walk through that cloud an hour and a half later, you could potentially get it. So that's why this particular disease is a little bit concerning. The other thing that originally we were told was each of these diseases has what's called an R0, and that basically tells you how contagious it is. So the flu, the seasonal flu's R0 is 1.5. That means for all of us in this room or in the community, if one person has it, most chances are 1.5 people are going to get it as well if they've been in contact with you. This particular virus, the R0 is around 3 to 4. So that means that if somebody in this room has it, most likely 3 or 4 of us are going to get it. That number could be changing as well because we've been seeing a lot of what they call super spreaders. Those for some reason seem to be an individual who is very contagious, and it takes very little for somebody to be around that person before they can contract it. And we see that in New Rochelle. We all know about the individual down there, and from that one person, there's been a number of people who have been affected through that chain. So that's a little bit about the virus that we're concerned about. Just give you a little bit of background on what it is and why we are concerned. So where are we now? We're at the containment phase still, but we're segueing over into the mitigation phase. What does that mean? That means that the initial response to one of these things is to try to contain it to where it originally originated from, or contain it outside of our district. Once it gets into our district and starts spreading person to person, that means we need to start switching over to mitigation. So we don't have that in Columbia County at this point, but the state as a whole, and I think the nation as a whole, is segueing from containment over into mitigation because we just see that coming down the pipe. So what does that mean? So we're going to be transferring from identifying people who we believe have a travel history, who have symptomology that are in line with this particular disease, and we then isolate and quarantine them as a means of containment. So it's going to get to a point where we're not going to be able to do that as the health department. We're not going to be able to contain and isolate and quarantine every single person whose now comes down with it. If we get to 20, 50 people, we just don't have the resources to do that. So now we're going to start segueing over into mitigation. We'll still try to do the containment to the best we can because it makes sense. But we're going to segue over into the mitigation procedure. And that basically means we're going to start doing more things like promoting social distancing, considering closing school districts and schools. You probably are aware today the governor announced that all SUNY schools will be closed. So these are some of the things that, as you can see, we're starting to segue over into, which is in the mitigation process. So what do we do during this time? We're going to be initiating non-pharmaceutical interventions, which basically are all those things we can do to help mitigate this problem without using pharmaceuticals, which we don't have right now. We don't have a vaccine, and we don't have a viable antiviral. The vaccine we're hoping to have developed within the year. I know every effort is being made to try to reduce regulations that will allow the companies to work swiftly on these things and be able to develop something swiftly. But even so, if they develop something next month, it's still going to take that testing period. That's going to take a while before we can release it out to the public. So the targeted area there is probably at least a year. What do we do within that time? We diligently try to seek if we can develop non-pharmaceutical interventions. Some of the positive things that we found with this so far is those individuals who are HIV patients and are being treated, the medications they're being treated with seem to help protect them to some degree from this virus. So that means that those types of antivirals seem to be fairly effective. And one of the cases that first came into the nation was an individual who basically was asymptomatic. They had the travel history. They were admitted to just make sure, just to view them and to try to learn as much as they could about this virus. While they were admitted, they were being observed. Around day 7, I believe it was, they started becoming symptomatic. They rapidly digressed within the next couple of days to where they were on a ventilator, on ICU. It didn't look good for them. So they tried to do a trial experiment with this individual. It was approved by CDC. They were administered one of the antiviral drugs similar to those which HIV patients get, and within 12 hours that person turned around. So these are some positive things that we're seeing. Unfortunately, we're not at a place now where we have those medications readily available and can distribute them widely. So we're doing the non-pharmaceutical interventions instead. Again, social distancing, stay home, no mass gatherings, cancel events that you might be having. We're not at that point yet, but we're preparing for that point, okay? Other things that we're going to consider is isolation and quarantine. Do we have to quarantine or at least contain a particular area like we see in New Rochelle? Do we implement an area where we see a real hot spot and then try to keep that from being spread out to the rest of our county? So those are some things that would be considered. And then simple barriers are another thing that we've talked about. A simple barrier, what is that? Well, that is basically utilizing a mask. If you're sick and you're symptomatic, the simple surgical mask can be effective because why? It helps when you cough or when you sneeze from displaying those droplets out into the air. So it's containing those within the individual and it's helping mitigate the issue. The N95s, we've all probably heard of those over and over again. Those are pretty much designated for healthcare professionals. And the situation with N95s is they are a respirator. They have filters in them. You have to be fit tested to make sure it adequately fits you, that there's no leaks on it. The problem with an N95, if there are leaks, is those crevices, obviously we all know, like water, air is the same way. It'll go to the area of least resistance. So now you're drawing in on your mask and you've got a hole, it causes a vortex. And that vortex will literally suck in that ambient air around you, and if there's virus in that air, it's going to be contained now in your mask, which can be dangerous. So that's why it needs to be fit tested and it needs to not have any leaks, hence why they're fit tested. So N95s are really designated specifically for medical care personnel who are professionally fit tested and approved that that's their mask. For the general public, if it gets to a point where we're trying to mitigate, we would probably encourage people, if you're out and you're sick for whatever reason, which you shouldn't be out, but if you have to go to the doctor because you're not feeling well, etc., or you have to go to the ER, we're encouraging people to wear a simple face mask in those situations if you're symptomatic. If you're not symptomatic, that mask will not protect you from somebody who is ill. Okay, it's not designed for that. The permeability of those things are very dense, or not so dense, I should say, and so the microns of these viruses can easily pass through those and you can inhale them. So they will not protect you from this virus. They're just used to protect others. So those are the issues that we're talking about, non-pharmaceutical interventions. If we are to have pharmaceutical ones eventually, it will be, of course, antivirals and it will be vaccines, and the health department will be working on establishing points of dispensing to make sure that those items get out to the population if and when they become available. So that's pretty much where we're at right now, is in that segue situation. We've already had a lot of phone calls from our school districts, from our long-term care facilities and nursing homes, asking, can you give us some guidance on what to do? And we're just encouraging people, use common sense and use the risk factor and make your decision based on those risk factors. Does the individual that you're concerned about do they have travel history to any one of these large, affected countries out there? If they do, that's a risk. If they have that plus symptoms, then they're a higher risk. And so at these facilities, we're encouraging people to put signage up on their door. If you have traveled to any of these places, and if you have symptoms, please refrain from entering and advise the local health department immediately. So that's one way we can stop them from getting into a facility and potentially contaminating a facility. So we're encouraging people to do that. We're encouraging people where if you're sick and you're a staff member, stay home, please, stay home. If you do have to, if you come into work and you need to have a meeting, we're kind of encouraging people to reduce the size of those meetings or the the venue in which you're going to have it, expand it so that if we had a larger group of people in here, we could retain that 6-foot distance when we sit and meet. So you'd have somebody here, you'd have 2 chairs skip, another person, that type of thing, if there's some reason you have to meet. We're encouraging people to do that electronically. You know, go on and do a WebEx together or communicate that way. If you're going to work, try to minimize your time outside. So rather than going to lunch at one of the areas here, of course they're going to suffer from this, but rather than going out in public and having a chance of getting contaminated, bring your lunch to work and eat your lunch at work. So these are just some of the things that we're trying to utilize for non-pharmaceutical interventions. So that's pretty much all I had at this point. Do you want to open it up to questions, or would Director Harris like to say a couple words?
So what we've done to prepare so far is we've actually been working on this for the past several weeks. Our health department's been on top of this and providing the information to emergency management, and we've been working with the EMS coordinator, the fire coordinators, and all the law enforcement agencies to initially provide them the information they need to deal with anyone within the general public who could have it, not know it, and then obviously someone who may have it. More recently, I was contacted by Chairman Morale about a week and a half ago, and he asked to work with the county department heads on coming up with a continuation of operations plan which will allow the county to provide initial services should there be a major disaster or something like this. Now, this is something that New York State has pushed recently in the last year or so, and we actually started planning at a lesser level about 2 months ago for a county-wide power outage. But with what's going on now, the chairman thought that we should meet and expand the departments that we deal with, and we're asking the departments to come up with a plan in the event that they have a large portion of their labor force out at once due to an illness. If their building is made unusable for any reason, what are they going to do? Get them thinking about it. We've had one meeting on that, and it went very well. We're going to have another meeting on that next week, and it's something that the county should have anyway, not just because of COVID-19, but because it's a good practice for disaster preparedness. Also, the Office of Emergency Management is required to make emergency requests to the state stockpile for personal protective equipment, medical supplies mostly, if it's needed. We've already made 2 requests on behalf of Columbia Memorial Hospital and other emergency services agencies in Columbia County, and just before I got here, we made a request on behalf of the EMS coordinator for the ambulances in the area. Now, the reason why they're short on personal protective equipment is because, not that they haven't tried to get them, it's because the suppliers were initially back ordered 2 months, and now they're telling us indefinitely. Even the jail, I made a request for the jail medical unit. So I just want to say that Columbia County began preparing for this for our emergency services several weeks ago. Our health department has done a great job, in my opinion. And I see what some of the other counties have done. They've done a good job too when we go to our regional meetings, but our health department has been right on top of it. EMS, they get direction from the state also, and they've been putting that out to the ambulances. And our county 911 agency is actually asking specific questions now based on what you're calling in for, and that leads them to ask more questions. That has proven to work already. I don't want to say too much, I'm not sure what I can say, but there have been people where emergency services have been advised, you may want to use personal protective equipment when you go in there. So we're ready as best we can be ready. We're doing more. We're actually planning for other things as a result of this, and it's been I don't want to say it's a good process, but we're trying to take advantage of something that's not a good thing. If anybody has any questions.
Test kits, do we have plenty of test kits? And if so, how long does it take to get the results from the test kits?
We don't have any test kits.
Okay.
At this point in time, the test kits are, at this point in time, literally at this point in time, hospitals are doing the testing. The kits go to the Wadsworth lab, that's a plus. When they were going to Atlanta, it was taking days, like as in like a week or whatever. We tested a gentleman last Friday, and we got his results on Sunday. So right now it's 2 days. We were initially told it was going to be a matter of hours, but right now it was 2 days. At some point in time in the very near future, they're going to have kits available to physicians, to providers, to test in their office. The problem with that is that a provider doesn't want somebody with coronavirus in their office. They don't want it to make everybody sick. So the hospital, what the hospital has done is that it's equipped its copay and Kinder Glacier Rapid Care with the kits. If somebody comes through us, and as Luann indicated, they have to get that number before they have to go through us right now. We're trying to set up a time so that they can go there and get tested. Columbia Memorial also, we talked about the trailer, or are we not yet talking about it?
Not yet, but yeah.
The Columbia Memorial is
It's
getting a
open.
trailer they're going to put in their parking lot, and they're going to be screening people in the, keep them out of the ED. They don't want sick people in the ED either. So there is going to come a point in time where the kits are a bit more readily available to physicians. I don't think it's going to necessarily change that, because I don't think they want sick people in their offices. But I think Columbia Memorial is still going to be the focal point. We had a conference call with them today, and I asked how many they thought they could do. 3 sites. It's ambitious, but they thought they could do 100, but they couldn't do 100 every day. They couldn't sustain that. So I do think there are going to be some physicians who are going to want to do it in their offices. I understand there's like 1 million kits available nationwide. Somewhere in the next 4 or 5 days, there's supposed to be 4 million available. I think we're going to start testing more. I think we're going to start testing people that I think the criteria is going to slide a little bit, so we can test more people. And what we're going to find out is, I think what we know, when those of us who deal with this every day, the virus is in the community. This virus is in the community. If you think about Columbia County's unique character and all the folks that come up from the city and on trains and second homes up here, there are people walking around who have the virus, and 80% of the people that get the virus are either non-symptomatic or they have a very light case, so they might have just thought they had a cold. But there's no way of verifying it, but I think it's out there, and I think that's what we're going to find out when we start doing more testing.
And we do have a lot of people from the city that have been calling who have gone to the ER in the city, been turned away, and then they come up here and try to get testing.
With these test kits, are they instantaneous, or do you have to take the swab and send it away?
The swab is taken. It's a nasal swab along with serum, and it's sent to Wadsworth Laboratory.
So it still has to be sent?
It has to be, and Columbia Memorial Hospital has a courier that is ready to go every day. If they have to, take it up to the Wadsworth Lab.
Each test takes 3 to 4 hours to run. It has to go through 4 processes to replicate DNA, so there's enough to be tested. And right now there's very few labs that are testing. We
So
keep hearing there will be more.
before all these test kits you have, if they get inundated with all these test kits, I mean.
Then the limitation would be the labs.
Well,
that's what I'm seeing.
we live in a capitalistic society. There's a number of commercial labs that are coming online, and when you're a commercial lab, what do you want to do? You want to make money, and so I think that you're going to see the testing explode with those commercial labs coming online, and that again, that's going to happen in the next couple of weeks.
These people you said are light symptoms, and maybe they become asymptomatic at some point. Will they still be like persistent shedders of the?
That's a good question. We're not quite sure yet how long. We do know that it's shed also in the stool and the urine, so that makes how we're going to isolate people rather difficult as well, because if you have one person in a family who is positive or a high risk of being positive, what do you do with the rest of the family? Because you don't want them sharing a bathroom. So not everyone has more than one bathroom in their home. So we are looking at places to move people if we need to.
Are you using the Code Red system, and is this a good time to invite people to join the Code Red system?
We would if we have something specific to put out. You know, the Code Red system is, for those who may not know it, is a mass alert system that Columbia County owns, where we can send out alerts to any part, the entire county or any part of the county. 911, the sheriff's dispatch, and all the emergency management people can do it either from home or at the public safety building. But we don't want to put too much out, not because of the information, but because if you put information out and it's not vital information, then pretty soon they're not going to listen to the alert. So absolutely, that's something we can use, and we will use it if we need to put an alert out.
Well, I wonder if now's a good time to even just put out a reminder, hey, sign up for, like, I imagine a lot of people don't know that the Code Red system exists, but if we're expecting that, there's a good chance that we would be issuing, you know, like mass quarantines or sort of mass directions. It might be a good time to now be like, stay tuned, sign up for the Code.
I mean, we can, yeah, as far as signing up, we could do it on all the social media pages and all that. I mean, if they don't have it yet, they're not going to get it if we give them an alert. Well, they might, because the thing with Code Red is that it will call every landline in the county, but it's not going to call your cell phone or send you an email unless you sign up to for a free account and put that information in there. So, yeah, I mean that's something we can push.
I did. Did I understand correctly that we're pushing people to go to CNH or one of their satellites as opposed to their doctor's office?
They can consult it. We have been pushing them to go to CMH because that's the only place, up until now, still now, that you can get tested.
So how are we communicating that? Because that's the call that I've been getting. Who do I go? Do I go to my doctor? Do I go to the hospital? What should I do?
Contact the health department, because
The health
again, right now, and again, it's everything. We sometimes get you know, three memos down from Albany basically saying this is the new procedure, and then, you know, 2 hours later it's revised. At this moment, if they go through the health department, we have to assign that number before they're going to get tested, and then we can help coordinate with CMH because they don't want sick people in their ED. And again, like the doctors are going to be able to test in their office pretty soon. I just don't think a lot of them are going to want to do it.
The other safety factor there is will be a screening component for them, so we'll have the most current guidance available, and so as they call our office, we'll be asking a series of questions according to the most recent guidance, which may then eliminate them from going and burdening the ER. So it might just simply be, well, they're not really a candidate, or it might be, well, you are a candidate, but you're not at a point now where you would meet the criteria for testing, so we're going to ask you to voluntarily quarantine at home. So there's a lot of options that we could have. The thing is, we don't want the local health department to be out of the loop, because we don't want people just automatically, oh, I want to go get tested, and now they're lining up at the doctor's offices, or they're lining up at the ER, and they're overwhelming them when maybe 50% of them don't really necessarily need to be there.
And then we would ask them to go to their private physician, and, you know, if we found that they were on low risk, we would tell them, you know, you should give your doctor a call, get their opinion. So we're kind of a screening, and it's kind of eliminating an extra step until they know they need it.
So really, you're going to the health department because you're going to have the latest information about what's
Right.
happening. That's
Right.
the reason to go.
That's
And the
been a
guidance for
problem.
screening has changed quite a bit.
And it's not, I don't think it's not New York State's fault. It's not even the CDC's fault. It's because it's something they haven't dealt with before. So it's changing literally every day.
Yes, sir.
Do you anticipate at some point, if this escalates, recommending to Chairman Morrell a protocol for towns? Obviously, airplanes are packed, committees are full, committees are meeting in towns, town boards are still meeting. But can you anticipate, or are you planning potentially, if we have an issue in Columbia County that escalates, creating a protocol, a recommendation to towns?
Recommendation, sure. I think that we anticipate, and we anticipate, the metaphor I'm using is you're standing on the beach and you're looking out and you think, off in the distance you see something that looks like a wave, but it's like, that can't be a wave, it's too far out, and then it just keeps coming and it keeps getting bigger, and we're going to get nailed, and that's what we think. we're gonna get nailed, and it's just, it's gonna sweep through the community, and this is a very successful virus. I mean, it's traveled a long way to get to America from China. This is a very successful virus, and I think we're gonna get to the point where, and let's remember, there are over 500 varieties of coronaviruses out there. They cause common colds in a lot of us. They've been around for a long time. This is a new thing, but it is a coronavirus. And we do anticipate that there's going to be a new normal. It's like people are going to stop and say, okay, there's no bodies in the streets here. This is okay. It's okay. I mean, let's keep vigilant. Let's maybe shut down some meetings if it gets too active in the community. But we do expect it to be much more
Do you
widespread.
think at this point we should just continue to just be pragmatic and continue to have our meetings?
Have your meetings, but be aware, social distance. Be aware. If you're sick, don't come to the meeting. And if you know somebody's sick, encourage them not to come to the meeting. It could be the flu. I mean, the flu is still quite prevalent right now. It's sort of peaked in the last couple of weeks, but it's quite prevalent.
Yeah, I called David Harrison the other day, and I've been looking online to try to get more guidance, but maybe you could talk to us about what you think, it's follow-up what Peter said, but what should towns be doing? What, in terms of a plan or a protocol or an approach?
Each town should have their own, and the city and the villages should have their own emergency plan. But this is kind of, a specific issue. So, I would either have put someone in charge of your emergency management or your emergency plan to come up and keep current on the ever-changing information, and maybe a committee so that
to deal with this specific
to deal with this. This changes so quick that the most important thing you can do is keep current on the information, and that's what our health department has been doing. So if you're current on the information, then it's not going to be that hard to make a decision on what to do. For example, the governor has put restrictions on New Rochelle or wherever down in Westchester County, and they've also asked statewide to provide them with any larger mass gatherings that may be coming, 100 people or more. So you may see, the governor's office come out with a recommendation also. But I think the most important thing you can do now is stay current on the information and have somebody that's responsible for that reports to you or reports to the town board or however you want to do it. And our health department is going to provide up-to-date current information and make recommendations. Really, I think
there's two things that we look at when somebody asks us a question, and again, it goes back to the risk factors. So if you're having an event in your community, and you know that event there's going to be international people coming to that event, that's something you're going to probably consider. We should postpone that because these people are coming from all over the world, etc. If it's the local Rod and Gun Club having a meeting, you know that everybody's just local town folks. There's much less risk for those people getting together than it would be an international group. You also need to consider what is the makeup of the group that's coming to this event. Are they high-risk individuals? Are they vulnerable individuals? And if that's the case, maybe you want to suggest postponing that event. So those are some of the things we're asking people to consider as guidelines when you're talking about continuing an event in your community or not.
Has there been any conversation about whether to continue senior citizens luncheons which take place in Copic?
There has been. Yeah, there's been discussions about that.
I mean, that would be a sad thing to isolate people further, but perhaps necessary.
The plan would be that we would try to get the food to them anyway.
Say it again, I'm sorry.
As far as meals go, that's a big concern of ours and something we've been planning for. If we do have to close groups like that, that are counting on a meal, we have to look into ways to get those things taken care of, to get food to their homes.
And that other
I've spoken-
group is the drivers for Meals on Wheels. Because most of our Meals on Wheels drivers are seniors.
Right.
And the Office of the Aging has been directly involved. I mean, 26% of our population is 65 or older in Posey County. So they're an important agency that we've been dealing with, and they have been involved.
I've talked to the director of the Office of the Aging, and they are making additional frozen meals and staple meals, which they don't have to be frozen or prepared.
that they, in case somebody's quarantined, they can drop off several meals, so they'll have them available.
Mr. Benson?
Jack, does the health department have plans to expand phone capacity, both in terms of length of day and in terms of number of lines, just in case this gets to be really critical?
Well, I think what we've done is expanded. The team that's working on this right now is 7 people. Communicable disease nurses, Mr. Kaiser, our preparedness person, and our director of patient services, et cetera. We've already informed our environmental unit. I came out of environmental, as many of you know. Environmental is one of those units that, they're kind of like the soldiers ready to go. If there's a kind of a weird need and you need to pull some money in to help out, they can help with line lists. One of the things that happens, there's an epidemiological research that goes on with each person. And so if let's say this gentleman, this provider who had to contact across the border in Mass, ends up positive, we need to research who he's been in touch with. All right, we need to break that down, and that's a lot of research. So I think we're talking about expanding the capacity within our department of pulling in from other departments, not necessarily.
I'm thinking just about access. If people are calling your department, the general number, to say, hey, I need a test, and they're calling you at 9 o'clock at night or at 10 o'clock at night when they've sort of gotten symptomatic, are you going to be there, or do they have to wait till the next morning?
When they call our number at 9 o'clock at night, it rolls over to the sheriff's department. And we have a supervisor on call all the time.
Okay.
And that supervisor screens the calls, and if it's going to be a CD call, we have CD nurses on call. So yes, we will take that call.
And at what level of daily call volume do the phones go down? I mean, how much capacity do you have to deal with this?
Well, we have 40 employees, and pretty much everybody has a phone. And so I think that if we began to branch out and talk and pull in other people from other departments, we still have, everybody's going to go to the receptionist, and she does some screening, and we've got a script that we're working off of for the people that are receptionists, so they're aware of what we're doing. And if it gets to that point in time where that volume happens, they're going to come through the 3358, and they're going to go out to wherever they need to go out to.
And MIS has been involved, our IT department for the county, and they've been involved right from the beginning as they're an essential agency now. You can't do anything unless you have access to the web, and our phone system is a countywide phone system, so there's a lot they can do with it, and there's a lot actually they can do with cell phone availability as well, should towers go down and things like that. So
I'm just thinking that as we start telling our residents, call the health department if you have an issue, if you think you're symptomatic, if you're worried about it, if you need a test, that volume could skyrocket.
And we do have a triage system. We have many people that are answering the phone, they're using the script, and then they're triaging and finding a nurse if there's something very concerning about it. And they move to the top of the pile. Some people that we were calling at the end of today called in yesterday, so their risk didn't appear to be as
if they have serious symptoms, they should call 911. Call 911. If you have serious symptoms and you're very sick, don't wait to call the health department. But if there's people, I think they've been getting a lot of calls from people who just want to know, they don't really have any symptoms,
right.
Or they may have a snuffle or a cough or whatever. They can call the health department to.
And New York State also has the hotline, the COVID-19 hotline that you can call into. It's staffed by public health students from SUNY Albany. And there's also communicable disease staff there to help with that. Usually the result is call the health department for guidance. So, it's a first step and it's a lot of education.
But we shouldn't be discouraging people in our communities not to call their doctors. We should be discouraging them from going to the ER and to showing up at their doctor's
right.
office.
And all the
although you're an
does
informational site, they can still, because not everybody that doesn't feel well has coronavirus. They may have some other, so it's not wrong to call your doctor's office and say, hey, this is how I'm feeling, what should I do?
Right.
And then they may direct you to the health department
and that
as well.
happens a lot.
So I think it's not that.
And if they are going to the state website or the CDC for guidance, it does tell them to call their doctor first. Yeah.
The one thing that's been reported a lot is it says as it warms up, this is all gonna go away. Is that true or not really?
Well, generally speaking, coronaviruses don't do well in warmer weather, generally speaking. We don't really know. If you look at the map of the world and you look at where the cases are, some of the warmer countries, South America, Africa, whatever, don't have that many cases. It just might be about travel. It might not be about this. And so if you're asking that question of, you know, somebody who is at the top of the food chain when it comes to this, they say we really don't know. They hope. They hope that we see a waning on it, but they're not sure of it.
Are you doing anything different at the county jail? And do we what kind of do we have to do sort of extra special procedures there? Just because you have a lot of people in a smaller space? One
of the things that came out of the meeting that we had here, they're talking about a continuum of operation plan, is that a lot of the department heads wanted to know if they could screen people who were coming in or you know calling ahead of time or whatever. And Chuck provided them with we screen typically because we're an Article 28 facility. We're a medical facility. We have clinics, so we screen and we do ask, have you had travel history? Are you feeling well today? Whatever. And so the sheriff has implemented that out to the jail, asking about how they're feeling. Mental health is working on their plan, and they're in the final stages of that. So a lot of the county facilities are in fact screening people as they come in the jail.
And there may come a time where they have to suspend visitation in the county jail. Other counties have done it already, but they're gonna work closely with the health department, because obviously the sheriff doesn't want to do that unless he absolutely has to. But you know, if it's going to mean a dangerous atmosphere for the inmates and the staff, then
are there additional tests on the inmates?
Only, I mean, if they're sick, they have a protocol in place, and they have, as you know, they have a medical unit in there. You know, nurses, they have a jail physician, so you know they're working on that. They're asking the questions. They're monitoring people who are sick, and if it happens, you know, they pretty much know what they're going to do. The only problem is, you know, you can't say as we stand here right now exactly, because every situation is different, exactly what to do. Like I can't say, you know, this is what you should be doing now. It's just based on the information that comes out.
Looking at the risks, because you may be asymptomatic today and very symptomatic tomorrow. One of our cases actually took his temperature 3 hours before and reported it to me, and then called me back 3 hours later, and he was 101. So, and was shocked that it went up that quickly in 3 hours. So we don't know if he's positive yet, but he's definitely at high risk.
Is there anything, I'm not saying preventative, but is there any other recommendations as far as if you feel slight symptoms other than like common flu, hydrate, and you know, is there anything in addition that people should maybe be doing or trying to be careful with?
We encourage, you know, to follow flu protocol. You know, flu will kill 30,000 Americans this year. COVID-19 has, you know, killed 5,500 to date in the world. So, you know, we really encourage people to follow the flu protocol. As Americans, we hate to stay home when we're sick. We need to start staying home when we're sick.
And scholastic sporting events, are they treated any differently? I mean, you've got a broad cross-section of people coming in. You obviously have perspiration.
We were very excited that I believe sectionals are over this week for boys basketball. Yeah, we are, you know, according to what county you live in and whether they've had any positives, they are looking at whether they want to have, you know, a bunch of people sitting in the stands, just like the colleges have.
Well, the NCAA tournament, which is up at the arena, is now, this first round at least is going to be before no audience. And some of the other colleges are doing no audience. We have a meeting set up tomorrow afternoon with all the superintendents of the schools to talk about where we're at and where we're going with that. They take their marching orders from state ed. The governor has already said that there's a positive case in a school that they are to shut down for 24 hours and clean and then reassess. They may shut down longer than that. So we're in the position of recommending. State ed kind of calls the shots with schools. But they've requested this meeting, so we're going to meet with them. In the back?
I'm just thinking back to the testing you were talking about possibly setting up a trailer. And I'm just thinking, I wouldn't want to go in that trailer to get tested. And I'm wondering if there would be a way to send people to people's homes to test them, because anytime you get a little hot spot like that, you get a trailer like that, how are you ever going to get that airborne stuff or whatever it is out of there so that the next person to get them in and get tested doesn't get infected?
I don't think we have the staff to go to people's homes. You know, our immunization nurses on a fairly regular basis, but a very infrequently basis, do go to people's homes. We just recently did somebody who had MS and couldn't get out of the house and give them a flu shot. We do that sort of thing, but I don't think we have the staff. What other countries are doing is they're doing drive-bys. You know, you stay in your car and you drive up and they give you the nasal swab, and Germany is doing a heck of a job containing this thing. They developed their own test and they're doing those drive-bys, and they're really doing a heck of a job.
And in New Rochelle, I think they're using some of those unique situations. You know, they're bringing in a lot of nursing staff to do normally what's done by a doctor.
And the trailer is something that Columbia Memorial Hospital is using to keep people from going directly in the emergency room. And as most of you probably know, they're bigger. They're part of a bigger system now. And we deal with their emergency preparedness people, and they have daily phone conferences, if not actual meetings, where they're all talking amongst all the regional, not just in Albany Med, the Albany Med system, but regional hospitals in this area, in the Capital District area. Daily they're talking. And so they're doing what other hospitals are doing, what they determine to be the best practices. I'm sure as far as the air quality and that, that's something that they've thought about.
They do have recommendations on how they should be cleaning, and they're following that in the ER already. So they would just move that into the mobile unit.
Is there an atmospheric, like, diagnostic device for that kind of thing?
There's negative pressure rooms that hospitals have, so that when you open the door, the air doesn't flow into the hallway and possibly infect people. They can look at the airflow of the equipment that they have in all rooms to see how often it's actually circulated through a HEPA filter to remove possible.
At this point, if somebody goes to the hospital, they know that they're coming, and they know they're coming because we notify them. They're put in a negative pressure room. They take them directly in a negative pressure room, and anybody who goes in that room goes in with full PPEs on, full gear to deal with an individual.
And they are thinking that they're going to be outside of the hospital doing some triage before they actually let anyone through the door.
I should tell you, we did learn on our call today with the hospital that Albany Med is going to set up a big tent in the parking lot. That's what they're going to do. So, Chairman Morrell is moving to his chair. Are we going to get the hook, Chairman Morrell?
Any other questions quickly?
Yeah, I have one comment. I know that if there's a wave and we see it at a distance, the reality is it's very hard to find Clorox in this community. It's very hard to find thermometers. Is there a way that the county can go to the governor and maybe get some of these supplies delivered to our county so we can have more opportunities? Because there's a shortage right now. So that's one thing. I don't know how to solve that problem. But
I can find out if there's an effort in place right now, and that we were at this meeting and it was discussed. I know that the governor's office has had the hand sanitizer that's made through.
But we can't get it.
We need it.
Well, I think municipalities can't get it.
Well, I brought it up earlier, but I know it's hard to get hand sanitizer. So if it could be brought to the county and then distributed.
The last request we made, they don't even have the regular procedural masks anymore, but they do have surgical masks, which is, I guess, a different thing.
The sad reality is most of the medical equipment that people use to protect themselves in hospitals is made in China. And so if the factories are unaffected, there's going to be a shortage. And of course, now there are a lot of people who want the masks. One of the things that Mr. Harrison is doing is trying to get the FDA to say that we can use expired N95s. We have a lot of expired N95s, and the state has a lot of expired N95s. And if we can get to and if when you look at them, they don't look any different than a brand new one. So we're trying to get that. That eases things a little bit.
And don't forget, the mask is only going to stop you from giving it to somebody else, right? It doesn't stop you from catching it, because it can go through a mask, unless it's an N95, and the N95 has to be fit tested to make sure it's, you know, there's no air that goes through on the side of it and everything. So for the general public to use it, it's not really, you know, it's not really something that's viable.
And hand washing is still number one, you know? It's tried and true, and it's going to protect everyone the best.
Last question. Whether it's supervisors or whether it's a designated emergency management person, how do we best keep updated? Are you going to be sending us email bulletins? Are you going to be sending texts? How will we know what the latest information is?
I think we can work with the chairman.
We're going to get
figure out how
information out
best to-
on a regular basis. I don't know if you saw on our Facebook page, I put some information.
Some of us don't use Facebook.
Oh, I'm sorry, but it was also in the paper. It was in the Columbia paper. It was the same article. We'll continue to do that as you know. I talk to Jack every day via email or directly. I talk to the governor's office every day. I do a conference call with them in terms of the capital region, what's going on. So we can get information out to the supervisors on a regular basis, whether it's directly to you through email or it's something that we post. We'll get it out.
And if you have any questions, call. I mean, you know, we'll direct you to where you can get the information. But you're gonna have priority because you're a public official. But I think information should. We want to make sure information comes from one source, so it's not confusing. So that's been a concern. So, you know, we want it to come from our Department of Health, and maybe for this group, it should go to the chairman out to you. But certainly, that doesn't mean you can't call me or someone else and if you have a question.
So maybe on that note, is there like a single website that we should be giving to the public? And I wonder if you could give the public health phone number now, just so I have it.
New York State's website really does refer a lot of the time to the CDC, and they're updating twice a day.
Yeah, our website refers. We give some basic information, but we refer people to the CDC site. They really do a good job with their site.
A lot of information there, a lot of different things.
For schools, businesses,
The health department number is 518-828-3358.
And Chuck's extension is.
Yeah, that's number.
It's already overloaded.
Okay. Well, thank you.
Okay.
Well, we appreciate it.
Thank you.
This may be based on the status of this virus. This may be a regular occurrence where we have a briefing before each meeting. So. Okay, we're going to call the meeting to order. Please rise for a moment of silent prayer, followed by the salute to the flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, I'd like to request the clerk call the roll.
Bassett.
Here.
Weigel.
Here.
Leader.
Here.
Menudo.
Here.
Stacks.
Here.
Adams.
Here.
Mettler.
Here.
Collins.
Here.
Riley. Eldridge.
Here.
Fury.
Here.
Chipkowski.
Here.
Livonia.
Here.
Sterling.
Here.
Mia.
He's here.
He's here.
I know, but he was.
He's on the hall.
Mia.
Yes.
Chamides.
Here.
Mussman.
Here.
Scalera. Guzzi.
Here.
Holding. Morel.
Here.
Matt.
Here.
Skoda.
Present.
(32-31) present, 304 absent. We have a quorum.
Thank you. I need a motion to pay the bills, accept the treasurer's report, and file the minutes within the clerk's office.
Motion. Second motion.
All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Carried. We have one proclamation. I'd like to ask Supervisor Knott and Mr. Fisher, our housing person, to come up front.
Welcome, Mr. Bill. And for those of you that don't know, Mr. Bill Fisher is our housing coordinator. He's been very busy this past year with a number of changes. Whereas the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development, under Title VIII of the Civil Rights Act of 1968, as amended, administering all programs and activities relating to housing and community development in a manner to affirmatively further fair housing, and Executive Order 11063 on equal opportunity in housing and non-discrimination in the sale or rental of housing built with federal assistance. And the Columbia Fair Housing Plan states further that long-term goal to assure that any person can obtain housing within their economic means in the County of Columbia, regardless of his, her race, religion, sex, national origin, marital status, or physical handicap. And whereas the Columbia County Fair Housing Office works diligently to educate the public about fair housing laws and the opportunities afforded to them regardless of race, religion, sex, national origin, marital status, or physical handicap. In doing so, they are enabling those who might not otherwise have the opportunity, the dream of being a homeowner, and the pride and self-esteem that comes with it. Now therefore be it resolved that the Columbia County residents are urged to learn more about fair housing practices, and be it further resolved that I, Matt B. Morrell, Chairman of the Columbia County Board of Supervisors, do declare this month of April as Fair Housing Month in Columbia County. Present this to Mr. Bill. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would just like to take a moment to introduce my right hand back there, Teresa Mayhew, who has chaired our committee for so long. I think she's been there longer than I have, and I've been here 20 years. So, you know, she does an awful lot for us, and she is a volunteer. And we have a new board member in Brenda, Supervisor Brenda Adams here. So, and I do thank you all, and I thank the support that I get from the County Government Committee. I see a number of them here, particularly Supervisor Kippy over there, and a number as I look around. So we do thank you. We look at this as a very important thing, and the calls that we get, and I think we get a lot of, you know, gratifying inspiration from these folks that are in, you know, sometimes they're in dire straits with regard to evictions and some of the deplorable conditions that they live in and so forth. So we do try to help ease their mind. We do try to refer them to the support group that might best help them. And so I do thank you all. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to request the clerk read the resolutions.
Resolution 61 through 68 of 2020 by Supervisor Bury.
Mr. Chairman, I move these resolutions for adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 69 of 2020 through 79 of 2020 by Supervisor Benvenuto.
Supervisor Benvenuto.
Mr. Chairman, I submit these resolutions for adoption.
Mr. Chairman,
Second motion.
can we pull out 72, 77, and 78 from that list and do a roll call vote?
72. Sure. So all the resolutions, 72, 77, and 78. And 79? You want 79 pulled as well?
Please.
Okay, that was 3, by the way. All right.
Roll call. Yeah.
So those are pulled. So the resolutions, other than those four that we listed, we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. So I'm assuming you want a roll call vote on those?
77 through 79 possible, 72 is.
72 roll call vote, please.
Okay. 72 roll call vote.
Okay, so okay, so we're doing a roll call vote on 72, which is authorization to enter an agreement with the Drug Enforcement Administration. Basson.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
Leader.
Yes.
Benvenuto. Stats.
Yes.
Adams.
No.
Mettler.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Riley. Eldridge.
Yes.
Fury.
Yes.
Chipkowski.
Yes.
Livonia.
Yes.
Sterling.
No.
Nia.
Yes.
Chimidas.
I think attempting to eradicate marijuana is the wrong use of resources. We should be focusing on evidence-based solutions, successful pathways to recovery, and harm reduction. I vote no.
I second my pal here, Mr. Trematis. I agree, and I vote no.
Scalera. Guzzi.
Yes.
Hoatling. Morel.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Skoda.
Yes.
2911 A's, 624 nays. The resolution passes.
Thank you. The next resolution would be
So
77.
77.
Mr. Chairman, if we do all three of you guys, I just address the board before we.
Sure.
Right. Could I know where you're going with this, and I'm happy to hear that, but I would like to make a motion if you're gonna discuss these are about contracts that we enter into executive session before we enter into some of the details of that.
So
I don't know where you're gonna, how deeply you're gonna dive into these, but these are regarding contracts, so.
We have a motion, we have a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. I'm gonna have to ask the people, other than
Yeah, PJ,
Ron
maybe to stay?
Caponera and PJ Keeler, if they leave the room, please. If it's over, we'll vote on all three resolutions at the same time.
Mr. Morel, sir, can I suggest that we carve out Gallatin, do that first, because it's apparently a no-cost lease, and then deal with the other two separately?
Okay. But what's that?
I'm suggesting that we leave it in the lease, because the terms of, none of the terms of the leases are being disclosed.
Well, just bear in mind that pursuant to his resolution request, he set limits, and this is so he can go send a letter of intent and negotiate with the owners for these sites, and that's why we went into executive session, because if we talk about prices and terms in an open meeting, then they'll definitely go up.
Okay, so we're gonna leave it in.
Okay.
All right, so 77, 78, and 79. Can you call the roll?
Basson.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to see these tabled for 1 month so we can get clarification on the possibility of purchase, so I vote no.
Weigel.
Yes.
Leader.
Yes.
Benvenuto.
Yes.
Stats.
Mr. Chairman, I'd just like to say, in the public meeting, that I'm absolutely against this. I've been against renting and leasing property for towers, emergency service towers. Been fighting for the past 10 years on the current one we have. This one is, these two are no different. These are actually increased cost to the county. And over a several-year period, it's going to cost us a lot more. And if we were to purchase the property, which I've been advocating for several years, any new purchase or any new tower sites. So I would just strongly urge everybody to please consider for us to purchase this property instead of entering into an endless lease that's going to cost us way more than it's worth for these towers. So I vote no.
Adams.
I vote no.
Mettler.
No.
Collins.
No.
Riley. Eldridge.
No.
Fury.
Yes.
Chipkowski.
Is the
support of a closer look? No.
Livonia,
Yes.
Sterling,
No.
Mia,
Mr. Chairman, I want to say no because we have to, I agree with the art advisor, so I'm saying no. We'll look in 1 month for this.
Shamitas,
No.
Mussman,
No.
Scalera, Guzzi,
Yes.
Houghton, Morel,
In the interest of public safety, yes.
Not,
Yes.
Skoda,
Yes.
1727A and 180808 nay. It does not pass.
Okay. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, could I suggest that we approve a motion requesting that Rob Lopez reopen discussions based on the numbers that Ray has presented and determine whether this idea is feasible?
Well, I think we'll just refer it back to public safety, and that committee will have to take the recommendations. If you're interested in it, make your recommendation to the supervisor on public safety or attend public safety. Because that way everyone that's interested can get the full information. So we know if Rob has made purchase offers, sale offers, lease offers, alternate sites, and how that works.
Can I just ask, Rob is going to give guidance on this, because he's going to say, what can I offer now? He's going to get that from public safety.
Well, he's been in communication with Chris Watts in my office, and if he needs additional help, we'll definitely give it to him. But I will stick to the position that we're going to need someone who has appraisal experience on cell tower siting and usage to tell us the lease versus purchase versus the co-location. If you get 3 carriers that co-locate at $2,200 a month, then you're making money on the site with a lease. So someone needs to do that financial analysis for these sites and provide him with the data, and then educate the supervisors so the decision can be made. I can't just tell them off the cuff that it's assessed or appraised at 20, give them 40, and we're good to go. Then it wouldn't be subject to a challenge.
Wouldn't this be something that should have probably already been in the works, have been done with something like this when you look at the numbers?
Well, you've been bringing it up for 10 years. Yeah, I mean, and Rob has been making those purchase offers and talking to people. I haven't had a direct discussion with him to see what it is and what it isn't. I mean, since the New Lebanon original issue, we have made offers to buy that site from the landowner, and their answer has been no. And that site has been critical and vital for the communications that we have now, so we haven't had an option to move. We had talked about, obviously legally, there's the option of eminent domain, but that's going to rely on the exact same answer, because the landowner's going to say, I could have put a cell tower on it with AT&T, Verizon, and Sprint at $2,200 a month and made $1 million. So you're taking that away from me. So that's why I'm saying that fiscal analysis as to the utilization of the site for a communication tower is probably going to happen to get a good answer.
And probably if we don't do this tonight, we're going to lose the grant money, we'll forfeit the grant money that we had approved, so we're off to a couple of years of research anyway.
Well, and at least if Mr. Lopez can come back and give explanation or justification to supervisors that have concern, you could pass it again next month, or consider it.
The grant money that was offered to us, is that for specifically those sites?
Yes. He's written several grants over the last several years until we, and he's been stockpiling the funding until we actually found suitable sites. But he did say, Chairman.
It's just the timing matching, is if we don't spend it by the end of the year.
No, I understand that, but it's also quite possible that you go back to the owner now, and the owner could say, no.
Right, yeah.
I'm not going to lease it or sell it.
Yeah.
So we can bring it next month.
But the towns can also reject this too, right?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily because of the public safety aspect. Just like a regular cell tower, we just went through that right now.
We should probably be careful how much we discuss.
So
Do a
Brenda, what do you
special
say?
public safety committee meeting early next week so we don't lose
And that's what
time?
public safety is.
Oh,
Yes.
okay, good.
Next Wednesday.
It'd also be good to know what the rollout is for this meeting schedule, because, again, I don't know the specific zoning laws in each of those towns, but if this is a site plan and a variance issue, which is, as described, it appears to be, those are easily 3 to 5 months processes. And then if you decide to go beyond that to eminent domain or something else, that could add a couple of other months. So we should also look at the timeline.
If this, Rob, if this is actually a cell tower type issue, I just went through it in my town.
It was a year.
It's not even eminent domain, because we had no rights, our planning board, to say no. We could mitigate some of the things, we could question some of the things, we hired every expert, we made AT&T come in and put all the money in escrow so it didn't cost the town any money. And we went through it, our town attorney sat with every one of those meetings. We couldn't say no to the tower, we could just ask specific questions and see if we couldn't sort of, you know, fix a couple of concerns that we had. But in reference to saying no to the tower, and if this is for that purpose, I just went through it, your town doesn't have the right to do that.
I cited, as chairman of the planning board, 3 towers, and on average they took a year each to cite. But you're right, we couldn't refuse it,
Right.
but we could mitigate a lot of the issues. We relocated those towers within the district to get better, support from the neighborhoods. But it is a lengthy process, and there are some things that the towns are entitled to do. And I don't know if these towers are known to or welcomed by the towns, so that's another issue, is, whether or not the towns would welcome it. And I would also say that in terms of co-location with other carriers, the cell tower networks are fairly well established now. They've been established for 15, 20 years. So what the co-location opportunities are, I don't know if they've been explored, but if we're doing a financial analysis, that should be considered as part of this equation, because we may not have other carriers that need that coverage in those areas now because they've already got their towers established.
So it's going back to public safety on Wednesday. So to move along.
Okay, resolution 80 of 2020 to 87 of 2020 by Supervisor Weigel.
Mr. Chairman, I offer these resolutions for adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 88 through 89 by Supervisor Basson.
Supervisor Bassett.
Mr. Chairman, I offer these resolutions for adoption.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 90 through 96 of 2020 by Supervisor Sterling.
Mr. Chairman, I offer these resolutions for adoption.
Second the motion.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 97 through 98 by Supervisor Knott.
Mr. Chairman, I offer these resolutions for adoption.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
Resolution 99. Chairman.
Yep. Mr. Chairman, if I may, I would like to have the opportunity to bring a resolution from the floor. Just due to timing, I don't have time to get this through County Government Committee. A while ago, as many of you know, the governor put an amendment in the budget to deregulate our local regulation of solar towers or wind towers and whatnot. So I put together this resolution just asking the board to support the towns so that we don't lose home rule authority on these projects, and have shared it with many of you. That's the only reason we're bringing it from the floor, because of timing for the budget. So I'd like to ask a motion to bring the resolution to the floor.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. All right, this will require a 2/3 majority.
May I just speak to this?
Sure.
Take any discussion or comment?
Well, we're considering whether it should come to the floor.
Oh, okay.
And then if that passes, then we'll actually entertain the resolution.
No, we have a motion and a second. We haven't voted yet.
Okay, sorry.
Basson.
Yes.
Weigel.
Yes.
Leader.
Yes.
Benvenuto.
Yes.
Stats.
Yes.
Adams.
Yes.
Mettler.
Yes.
Collins.
Yes.
Riley. Eldridge.
Yes.
Erie.
Yes.
Chipkowski.
Yes.
Livonia.
Yes.
Sterling.
Yes.
Mia.
Yes.
Chimini.
Yes.
Muslim.
Yes.
Scalera. Guzzi.
Yes.
Potling. Morel.
Yes.
Knott.
Yes.
Skoda.
Yes.
3569 A's, 316 nays. Well, 316.2 nays. So yes, you can
Now, Mr. Chairman, could I offer Resolution 99 for adoption?
All in favor?
You want to speak?
Now,
You want to speak to it?
yeah, this is, I just need to talk for a second, because this is very personal to Copac. In January, we had a meeting with a company from Chicago by the name of Hecate. They were proposing that they would build install a solar project, which they call a solar farm, in Copac to the tune of between 700 and 900 acres. And that was because they had been to us several years before, at which time they were talking about a smaller project. Now, because they want 60 megawatts and this many acres, they proceed under what's called Article 10, which is New York State law. So by proceeding under Article 10, they did an end run around the town's laws and our planning board and the zoning law which we had in place. Then subsequently, so we thought that that was, we were horrified because it felt like it trampled everything that we had built up over the years. But now with this new law, it would even further accelerate this process. The process is tilted totally in favor of the solar company. There's less time for us to object to this in terms of the passing of the law, but once it's in place, there will be less time for us to object in terms of, there will be fewer intervenor funds, which are funds available to the town to fight this. There will be less time for inquiries which might look into the environmental effects. This would be devastating to our farmland and to our open space and the values that we had cited as important to Copac in our comprehensive plan, which was passed in 2011. The Association of Towns has issued a vehement opposition to this law, and tomorrow night the Copac board, I suspect, will pass a resolution against this amendment. We are seeing Dee Dee Barrett tomorrow morning. We're seeing Daphne Jordan next week. I hope that this Board of Supervisors will vote in opposition to this amendment. Thank you.
So we have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you.
Problem.
Good work, Supervisor Knott. Thank you. We have another resolution?
No, we're all done.
Mr. Chairman, does it make sense for us to reconsider separately Resolution 79, which is the tower in Gallatin?
I believe they're locationally tied.
I'm sorry?
I believe they're locationally tied, meaning he's got to get all three where he wants
Point to
them.
point. You know,
Oh, he's got to get all three.
They want to see each other, you know. So if one of the other locations ends up not working out, then that may not be the opportune location either.
Yeah, okay.
Triangulate.
All right, do any supervisors have any other business to bring?
I just have one comment. I'm really sorry that we keep, I voted against hunting for marijuana in Columbia County. The governor is thinking about passing a law to make it legal. So it seems like it's a waste of our resources and time just to restate that, my objection. Thank you for letting me object again.
I can assure you that if and when the state does make it legal and the state's involved in selling marijuana, they will still be looking for those who are growing it illegally, probably even more.
Even more so if you're taking money out of their pocket.
Well, might change my tone when the law changes.
Yes, sir.
I was wondering if at the end of the meeting we could have a moment of silence for the passing of Ken Hollenbeck. He was former youth commissioner in the city of Hudson and also was a coach at the Hudson High School.
So no other business? Motion to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Observe a moment of silence.